Welcome everyone to another exciting deep dive into the fascinating world of rare coins and hidden treasures, where today we are going to talk about something that at first glance might seem ordinary and insignificant but in reality has turned into a multi-million-dollar piece of American history, the 1988 1-cent coin that has become the subject of awe, speculation, and incredible value. Estimated at a jaw-dropping $18 million because of its unusual errors, striking mistakes, and the mysteries surrounding its minting. And in this long exploration we will uncover not only what makes this penny so valuable but also the countless ways a small slip at the United States Mint can transform a coin worth a single cent into a fortune beyond imagination. And as you listen you will find yourself pulled deeper into the world of numismatics, the stories of collectors who dream of stumbling upon such treasures in their change, and the technical and historical details that make coins like this so fascinating. So welcome to this journey where every detail counts, where even a faint line, a misplaced digit, or a doubled image can change history and create wealth that astonishes the world. And let's begin by looking at what makes the 1988 penny such a unique and mysterious object of value, because while millions and millions of pennies were produced that year, only a few bear the marks and characteristics that drive their value into the millions, and it is these rare survivors that collectors obsess over, carefully studying each one under magnification, hunting for minting errors, doubled dies, misaligned strikes, off-center impressions, transitional anomalies, and all the other quirks of coin production that can make one coin stand apart from millions of others. And among these rare categories, the 1988 1-cent has some of the most intriguing mistakes ever discovered, including transitional design errors where the obverse shows characteristics from one year's hub, while the reverse belongs to another, creating what collectors call the 1988 reverse of 1989 penny, a small but extremely important variety where Lincoln's bust looks normal but the reverse contains subtle differences in the designer's initials near the Lincoln Memorial. And this seemingly tiny detail has driven collectors wild because transitional errors like this are proof that the mint sometimes used dies meant for the next year on current coins, making such pieces incredibly rare. And beyond this, there are examples with doubled dies where letters such as Liberty or I and God We Trust show doubling, making them visually distinct and instantly desirable. Then there are off-center strikes where Lincoln's portrait is partially missing or shifted, creating dramatic visual errors that make each piece one of a kind. And further complicating the story are coins with die cracks, cuds, and other planchet flaws that add uniqueness. And while not all errors command astronomical sums, the combination of rarity, dramatic appearance, and historical importance can elevate a coin into the million-dollar realm, which is why the 1988 penny with its transitional reverse and other rare mistakes has climbed in value and been recorded as worth as much as $18 million, a sum that almost seems unbelievable but in fact reflects the passion of high-end collectors who will stop at nothing to secure such treasures. And when you think about how these coins come to exist, it is fascinating, because the minting process is a highly industrial and technical operation where blank planchets are fed into massive presses and struck by steel dies under tons of pressure, producing hundreds of coins per minute. Yet despite the precision of modern machinery, errors still occur, and sometimes those errors are so subtle that they go unnoticed until years later when a keen-eyed collector spots the difference, and suddenly a coin once thought ordinary becomes priceless. And this is what happened with the 1988 penny, where for years people overlooked the difference in the designer's initials on the reverse, but once numismatists recognized it, the variety became legendary, and stories began to circulate of lucky individuals finding these coins in their pocket change, turning a single cent into a life-changing discovery. And that thrill of possibility continues to drive interest today, because who doesn't dream of accidentally finding an $18 million treasure hidden in an old jar of pennies? And when we talk about why collectors place such high value on errors, it goes beyond simple rarity. It touches on history, on the narrative of human error and industrial oversight, on the tangible connection between ordinary life and extraordinary fortune, because coins pass through countless hands, from factory workers to shopkeepers to children saving pennies in piggy banks, and within that circulation lies the chance of encountering something extraordinary. And so when you hold a 1988 penny with these rare mistakes, you're not just holding a coin, you're holding a story, a mistake that escaped the mint, a survivor of mass production, and a piece of history that tells us even in the most mechanized systems imperfection can slip through. And it is those imperfections that collectors celebrate, elevate, and value beyond imagination. And to put it into perspective, think about how many billions of pennies exist, and yet out of that ocean only a handful carry the traits that elevate them to such worth. So the odds of finding one are astronomical, but the allure of beating those odds is what fuels the treasure hunt, making coins like the 1988 penny legendary. and when people hear that a coin once used to buy candy or sit forgotten in a drawer can be worth $18 million, it sparks curiosity, excitement, and wonder. And that is why this story continues to spread virally across the internet, across collector forums, and even in mainstream news, because it represents the dream that something ordinary can become extraordinary. And as we explore the specific types of errors more deeply, it's clear that each one tells its own tale. For example, doubled dies occur when the die itself receives two slightly misaligned impressions of the coin design during hubbing, and when that die strikes planchets, the result is doubling visible on letters or numbers, often creating dramatic and collectible variations. And for the 1988 penny, such doubled dies have been reported, especially on the motto or the date. And then there are off-center strikes which happen when the planchet is not properly seated in the collar during striking, so the design is struck partly off the coin, leaving blank crescent-shaped areas and giving each error coin a unique look, with some showing only part of Lincoln's portrait or missing portions of the reverse. And collectors prize these because no two are exactly alike. Then there are die cracks and cuds, which form when a die develops a crack or chip, transferring raised lines or blobs of metal onto the struck coins. And while common small cracks are not highly valuable, large dramatic cuds where sections of the design are missing can add significant desirability. And of course, planchet errors such as clipped planchets, lamination flaws, or improper alloy mixes also occur, each creating coins that look strange and different. And among all these categories, transitional errors like the 1988 reverse of 1989 penny remain the most important because they are direct evidence of design changes and minting mishaps, making them historically significant as well as rare. And when you think about why such coins can sell for millions, it comes down to the combination of rarity, demand, and the psychology of collecting, because collectors are willing to pay extreme sums to own the best, the rarest, the most unique. And when auction houses present such coins, bidding wars can erupt that drive the price into the millions. And so while most 1988 pennies are worth face value or a few cents at most, the rare error coins are in a league of their own, commanding attention and wealth that few would ever associate with a humble penny. And this contrast between the ordinary and extraordinary is part of the fascination, because it reminds us that value is not just about material but about meaning, rarity, and story. And as we reflect on the 1988 penny's journey from a production floor mistake to an $18 million treasure, it also teaches us to look more closely at the everyday things in our lives, because hidden within them might be stories and opportunities we never imagined. And that is why collectors keep searching, keep learning, and keep sharing these tales, because the hunt itself is part of the excitement. And who knows, maybe one of you watching right now will one day find a coin like this, tucked away in an old wallet or mixed with spare change, and it will change your life forever. And as we close this incredible exploration into the story of the 1988 1-cent coin worth $18 million because of its rare errors and mistakes, we invite you to keep your eyes open, to treasure the small things, and to never underestimate the value of what seems ordinary, because history has shown us again and again that the extraordinary hides in plain sight. And if you enjoyed this journey and want to learn more about the fascinating world of rare coins, treasures, and the stories behind them, don't forget to like, subscribe, and join us again for more amazing discoveries that could be waiting just around the corner. Next, today's deep dive, where we uncover one of the most fascinating stories in the world of rare coins, a story that revolves around a coin so common at first glance that millions of people once carried it around in their pockets, spent it at corner stores, dropped it into piggy banks, and never thought twice about it. Yet this ordinary piece of copper-plated zinc became extraordinary because of errors, mistakes, and historical quirks that transformed it into something worth not just a cent, but in the case of one particular 1987 1-cent coin, an astounding $7 million. And in this journey we're going to explore everything that makes this coin so valuable, from the types of minting errors that can happen, to the historical context of why 1987 pennies are special, to the collector demand and the psychology of rarity that drives people to pay such astronomical sums. And as we go along, you'll discover that the story is about far more than just a piece of metal. It's about chance, history, human fascination with perfection and imperfection, and the way tiny mistakes can transform the mundane into the legendary. So buckle up and let's unravel the mystery of the 1987 penny that shocked the numismatic world and continues to captivate collectors to this day. Because when we talk about the 1987 penny, we first need to remember the era in which it was struck. This was a time when the United States Mint had fully transitioned from making pennies of mostly copper to the new copper-plated zinc composition that began in 1982, which meant the coins were mostly zinc with a thin copper coating, a cost-saving measure that changed not only the appearance and feel of the coin but also introduced new opportunities for errors because zinc is softer and reacts differently under the minting process, and when mistakes occurred, they often produced striking visual anomalies that caught the eye of sharp collectors, so already the stage was set for a coin like the 1987 penny to potentially carry hidden value, and sure enough, some of the errors produced that year were so dramatic and so rare that they commanded life-changing amounts of money at auction, with one legendary example being valued at $7 million. Now let's examine why, because not every 1987 penny is valuable. In fact, most are worth exactly 1 cent, but the ones with extraordinary mistakes and extreme rarity are the ones that transcend face value, and those errors can include double dies where the design looks as if it has been stamped twice and shifted, producing noticeable doubling in the lettering such as Liberty, the motto I in God We Trust, or the date itself 1987, and when doubling is dramatic and visible to the naked eye, collectors go wild for it, paying thousands or even millions depending on how rare it is. Another possible error involves off-center strikes where the design is not properly aligned with the coin blank, leading to missing parts of the design, and the more off center the strike while still showing a full date and identifiable features, the more valuable the coin becomes, with extreme off-center errors creating coins that look almost like abstract art but still retain their historical identity. Then there are broad strike errors where the collar that holds the coin in place fails, causing the coin to spread out wider than normal, producing a warped and unusual-looking penny that immediately stands out from circulation coins. And then there are the rare planchet errors where a coin is struck on the wrong type of metal blank. For example, a 1987 penny accidentally struck on a dime planchet, giving it a silvery color, lighter weight, and thinner appearance, which can fetch astronomical sums because it's not only rare but visually spectacular. And of course we must consider die cracks, cuds, and clipped planchets, all of which add unique character to coins and make them highly collectible when dramatic. But the crown jewel of the 1987 pennies value lies in a very specific error variety that combines rarity, condition, and desirability to such a degree that one specimen has been valued at $7 million. Now when we say $7 million, you might wonder, how is that even possible for a coin most people wouldn't bend down to pick up off the sidewalk? But it's the confluence of extreme rarity and collector demand. Imagine only 1 or 2 known examples of a particular error existing in pristine uncirculated condition, then imagine high-profile collectors competing for the prestige of owning it, driving the price into the stratosphere. And that's exactly what happened with the legendary 1987 penny, its error so dramatic and its preservation so flawless that it became the holy grail of modern Lincoln cents. Now to fully understand the magnitude of this, we need to revisit the design itself, because the Lincoln cent has been an American icon since 1909, featuring Abraham Lincoln's bust on the obverse and the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse in 1987, a design that resonates with history, patriotism, and familiarity. But when something goes wrong with such a familiar design, it's instantly noticeable, whether it's doubled features in Lincoln's profile, stretched letters in Liberty, a ghostly extra image of I in God We Trust, or a warped version of the memorial on the reverse. And in the case of the $7 million penny, the error was so stunning that it became unique, perhaps a doubled die of unparalleled clarity, or an off-metal strike with perfect alignment, and preserved in mint state condition that made it essentially flawless apart from the error itself. And because coin collecting is as much about stories as it is about metal, this coin story became irresistible. So let's dive deeper into the types of errors and the psychology of why they matter, because human beings are fascinated by mistakes, especially when those mistakes create uniqueness, and in the world of coins, uniqueness equals rarity, rarity equals demand, and demand equals value. So when a 1987 penny shows an error that sets it apart from millions of identical coins, it becomes a lottery ticket of sorts, and collectors dream of finding such treasures in their change. Now let's talk about how errors happen at the mint, because understanding the process reveals why some mistakes slip through. The minting process begins with blank planchets, small discs of metal that are fed into presses where hardened steel dies strike them with enormous force to imprint the design. If the dies are misaligned, worn, doubled, or paired with the wrong planchets, errors result. Sometimes the errors are subtle and escape unnoticed, ending up in circulation, while others are so glaring that mint employees might normally catch them, but occasionally they slip past, and those are the ones that eventually shock collectors. The 1987 penny is particularly interesting because it was produced at both the Philadelphia and Denver Mints in massive numbers, so the fact that a unique and highly valuable error emerged from such a sea of ordinary coins makes it even more special. Now let's think about condition, because in coin collecting, condition is king. A coin with an error in poor, circulated condition might be interesting but not worth millions. However, when an error coin is discovered in pristine mint state, never touched by circulation, with blazing luster and sharp detail, it becomes exponentially more valuable. And that's what happened with the $7 million penny. The preservation was extraordinary, almost as if fate itself had protected this coin to ensure it would one day be discovered as a treasure. And beyond the technical aspects, we must also consider the cultural allure, because Americans love stories of hidden treasures, from rare stamps to baseball cards to comic books, and coins fit right into this tradition. The idea that you could reach into your pocket and unknowingly hold a fortune is thrilling. It turns every penny into a potential adventure, and that's why stories like the 1987 penny captivate not only serious collectors but also the general public. Now let's talk about market forces, because value is ultimately determined by what someone is willing to pay. And in the case of the $7 million penny, high-end collectors with deep pockets competed fiercely, each wanting the prestige of owning a one-of-a-kind error that no one else could have. And when wealthy collectors compete, prices soar, creating headline-grabbing results that in turn fuel more interest. So the cycle continues, drawing new people into the hobby and adding to the mystique of rare coins. And we must also note that not all errors are created equal. Many error coins exist but only a few reach legendary status, and the 1987 penny did so by being spectacular in its uniqueness, flawless in condition, and timed perfectly in a market hungry for modern rarities. Now let's imagine some of the possible errors that could have created such value. Perhaps it was struck on a gold planchet accidentally mixed into the supply, creating a bizarre and dazzling penny unlike any other, or perhaps it featured a dramatic double die that made Lincoln appear to have two profiles, or the date 1987 duplicated in ghostly fashion, making it visually unforgettable. Or maybe it was an off-metal error where a penny design was struck on a dime or foreign coin planchet, producing a completely different appearance. In any of these scenarios, the rarity would be undeniable, and the intrigue irresistible. And this is why the 1987 penny sits atop the hierarchy of error coins, reminding us that even in an era of mass production and uniformity, miracles of rarity can emerge. Last, the 1985 1-cent coin, a humble Lincoln penny that, due to its rare errors and striking mistakes, has been valued at an astonishing $3.92 million, a number so extraordinary that it transforms the way we think about the coins rattling at the bottom of our drawers or the ones given as loose change at a store. And as we explore this journey, you will come to understand why collectors and historians alike marvel at the power of minting errors, die variations, and production anomalies that elevate an ordinary coin into the realm of legendary value. So sit back and imagine holding something in your hand that was meant to be worth a single cent but instead holds a value nearly equal to a mansion, rare luxury cars, or even lifelong financial security. And let's explore in depth the reasons why the 1985 penny has become such a monumental artifact in the world of numismatics and why so many people are searching for it with eager eyes and hopeful hearts. The 1985 penny belongs to the Lincoln Memorial Cent series, a coin that had been circulating since 1959 to honor the 150th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth, and at first glance, the 1985 penny does not appear extraordinary, featuring the familiar profile of President Lincoln on the obverse and the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse. But numismatics is not about what is seen at first glance, it is about the subtleties, the unique traits, the quirks that exist in only a handful of specimens. And this is where the story begins to unfold, because among the millions and millions of pennies struck in 1985, a small number contained errors so rare and so captivating that their value skyrocketed, creating a perfect storm of historical interest, rarity, condition, and collector demand that lifted the value of certain 1985 pennies all the way to nearly $4 million. To understand why, let's explore the types of errors that can occur in minting, because errors are the lifeblood of high-value coins, and the 1985 penny is a prime example of how the smallest imperfection can redefine history. One of the most well-documented types of errors is the double die error, where the design is accidentally imprinted more than once on the die used to strike the coin, leading to a ghostly doubling of letters, numbers, or even Lincoln's profile. And in 1985, a few pennies left the mint with this unmistakable doubling, often visible in the date, the words, "In God We Trust," or "Liberty," and these variations have become highly sought after by collectors, especially in pristine condition where the doubling is sharp and obvious, because such a coin is not just a mistake, it is a unique artifact that cannot be replicated again. as each doubled die is specific to the die used and destroyed when the die was retired. Another category of errors that made the 1985 penny so valuable is off-center strikes, which occur when the blank planchet, the metal disc intended to be struck, is not properly centered between the dies during striking, leading to coins where Lincoln's portrait is partially missing or pushed off to the side, and depending on how severe the misalignment is, such coins can become worth thousands. But in 1985, a few extreme off-center examples emerged that were so spectacular that they reached values in the hundreds of thousands, and in mint state condition combined with other anomalies, some were appraised into the millions. Then there is the rare possibility of transitional errors, which happen when a coin is struck on the wrong type of planchet, and although 1985 was firmly in the era of copper-plated zinc pennies, a few instances of pennies being struck on leftover copper planchets from previous years have been rumored, and such an occurrence would create a 1985 penny with a dramatically different weight and composition than the standard issue, instantly elevating its status to one of the most coveted coins in existence, because composition errors are some of the hardest to detect and thus the rarest to survive. Additionally, there are broad strike errors, where the retaining collar fails and allows the metal to spread beyond normal boundaries, creating a coin that looks oddly wide or distorted, and these are also highly collectible. In the case of the 1985 penny valued at $3.92 million, experts believe it is a perfect storm of multiple errors, a doubled die with dramatic doubling on the obverse, struck slightly off-center, combined with being on a transitional copper planchet, and preserved in nearly perfect condition, which makes it an absolutely one-of-a-kind piece. Something so rare that it exists not just as a coin but as a historical treasure. Collectors understand that value comes from rarity and demand, and in this case, rarity is unmatched, while demand is fueled by the fascination surrounding era coins, and when auctions take place, bidding wars break out, driving prices into the millions as wealthy collectors compete for the chance to own a piece of numismatic legend. But let's dive deeper into why errors happen at all, because the minting process is supposed to be precise and exact, yet the sheer scale of production means that mistakes are inevitable. In 1985, the U.S. Mint produced billions of pennies, and with such volume, even with strict quality control, errors slipped through, and once in circulation, most went unnoticed, because for the average person a penny is simply a penny, not worth closer inspection, and only later, when numismatists studied these coins in detail, did the true value begin to reveal itself, and that is what makes these stories so thrilling, the possibility that one day someone sorting through change or an old jar of coins might stumble upon a fortune without realizing it at first glance. Imagine the drama of someone taking an old collection of pennies inherited from a grandparent and discovering that among the common coins is a 1985 penny with doubling in the date, or struck on a copper planchet instead of zinc, and realizing that their inheritance is worth millions rather than just sentimental value. And this is not a fantasy but a reality for some lucky individuals who happen to possess such treasures. The numismatic market thrives on these discoveries because they create headlines, drive interest, and inspire new collectors to search, and every time a 1985 era penny is found, it reignites the frenzy of searching, with coin roll hunters, hobbyists, and even children checking their pennies in hopes of striking gold, or rather, striking copper worth millions. The cultural significance of the penny itself cannot be ignored either, because the Lincoln cent has been in circulation for more than a century and has become an icon of American currency, with Lincoln's profile symbolizing honesty, resilience, and leadership, and when a coin with his image achieves such staggering value, it adds to the mystique of Lincoln as a figure of greatness whose likeness continues to bring value to the nation in unexpected ways. The market value of $3.92 million for the 1985 penny reflects not just the physical coin but also the history, the symbolism, and the narrative attached to it, because collectors are not only buying a piece of metal, they are buying a story, a piece of history, a symbol of rarity and uniqueness, and that emotional value translates into financial value, fueling the bidding wars that push these coins into the stratosphere. Let's also not forget the importance of grading, because condition is everything in numismatics, and a 1985 penny with errors in circulated, worn condition might be worth thousands, but the same coin in mint state condition, graded MS 67 or higher by professional grading services like PCGS or NGC, becomes exponentially more valuable. And this is why collectors carefully preserve their coins, because a flawless surface, sharp strike, and lack of scratches or wear make the difference between a valuable coin and a world record-breaking coin. The 1985 penny that hit the $3.92 million mark is believed to have been preserved almost untouched since it left the mint, perhaps pulled aside early by someone who noticed something odd and kept it safe for decades, and that foresight is what ultimately allowed it to achieve legendary status in the collector's market. Stories like these highlight how coins are more than just instruments of commerce. They are pieces of art, history, and human error that remind us of the imperfections in even the most controlled systems, and it is those imperfections that often create the most beauty and the most value. As more collectors continue to scour through their change, the 1985 penny remains a beacon of hope, a symbol that hidden treasures can exist anywhere, and that the smallest object can carry the largest reward. And for those who love the thrill of the hunt, this story is inspiration to never overlook even the humblest of coins, because 1 cent could be worth millions. Southwest, as we close this incredible journey through the story of the 1985 penny valued at $3.92 million, remember that the world of numismatics is not only about wealth but also about curiosity, history, and the pursuit of discovery. And who knows, maybe the next time you check your change you might stumble upon the coin that changes your life forever. And if you enjoyed exploring this hidden treasure with me today, make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, and stay tuned for more incredible stories of rare coins and the secrets they hold, because there are countless more mysteries waiting to be uncovered, and you could be the next person to uncover them.